Welcome back guys, this is Falgun and today we are going to discuss about outbreeding devices. So without wasting any time, let us begin the topic. So what is outbreeding devices? Outbreeding devices are those devices that is produced by the flower to prevent self-pollination, to prevent self-pollination. Okay, so as you know, many and most of the flowering plants, they produce hermaphrodite flowers. Hermaphrodite flowers. See, what is hermaphrodite flowers? First of all, let us discuss that. Okay, it is a flower consists of both male. This particular structure that is called as an anther, which is male reproductive part, and this whole structure that is pistil, which is again called as an female reproductive part. Okay, so in this flower you can observe that male and female are present in a single flower, right? So this condition is called hermaphrodite flowers. This type of flowers is called as an hermaphrodite flowers because they have both male and female in a single flower. So if male and female present in the single flower, then that is obvious that there will be the pollination, right? And the pollination will be self-pollination. Okay, if self-pollination is occurring for 1, 2, 3 generations, that is totally fine, but it will create a problem when the self-pollination will occur for generations and generations. So the problem is inbreeding depression. So now let us understand what is inbreeding depression. So basically what happens, just try to concentrate on my words. See, when crossing occurs between relatives, okay, rapidly, okay, the population develops on future, or the future generations cannot able to persist, reproduce or fight against the changing environment. As a result, their species may extinct, or that particular species may get extinct in future, right? To avoid extinction, flowers basically produce some devices to prevent that self-pollination or prevent the inbreeding depression. Those devices that we are going to discuss deeply in this video. There are quite many devices that plant produces to avoid the self-pollination. We'll be discussing one by one. Okay, so the first device that we are going to discuss is nothing but that is synchronization. So about that I will be discussing in a bit. So in some species what happens, pollen gets released into the stigma portion, right? Stigma of a pistil. Okay, the release of the pollen and receptivity of the stigma should be at a same time. It should occur. If it fails, so at that moment we can say this is not synchronized. That means this phenomenon doesn't occur at the same time. As a result, pollination fails. Okay, this is one type of device which is produced by the flowering plant. Let's move to let's move to next type of device. So previously we have discussed about what? First type of device that is produced by flowering plants. Now let us discuss about second type, which is produced by the flowering plants. Second type of device to prevent self-pollination. So what happens in some species? In some species, what happens? Anther and stigma are placed at different positions. Okay, to make pollination successful, the position of the stigma and what anther should be nearby. If the positions of anther and stigma are different, then there will be no pollination, or pollination fails. Simply it fails. That is also one kind of device to prevent self-pollination. Okay, let's move on to the next type of device which is produced. So the third device is self-incompatibility. So what is self-incompatibility? So this is an anther. Let me just draw. This is an anther. So anther produces the pollen grains, right? And this is the stigma. Let me draw the stigma. Okay, this is the stigma. So on dehiscence, what happens? The anther to the portion of the stigma, or the region of the stigma. Okay, the anther moves to the region of stigma on the course of pollination. Okay, so what actually the stigma does is, stigma basically inhibits the growth of pollen grain. As a result, the pollination doesn't occur in this case. Simply, if I speak, then simply what it explains to us is self-incompatibility. What it explains to us is nothing but very simple, that the pollen grains, the stigma doesn't basically allow the pollen grains to grow on the surface or germinate on the surface. As a result, pollination fails. This is one kind of device. Okay, let's move to the next part or next type of device that we are going to concentrate here. That is nothing but production of unisexual flowers. Okay, so this is the tree, papaya tree. Here what happens basically, this papaya tree, there are two types of flowers you can see in the papaya species. One is male, other is female. Okay, the male and female, they are present in two different flowers. As a result, there is no chance of self-pollination. As a result, it prevents inbreeding depression, or it prevents pollinating processes like autogamy and geitonogamy. These flowers in which see, uh, male flower consists of anthers or stamen precisely. Female flowers consist of pistil. So these flowers which is having only one sex organ are called as in dioecious. Okay, dioecious flowers. So that is it for today. Thank you for joining in. This is Falgun signing out.